Welcome to today's story. Tell me in the comments, what time is it, and which country are you watching from? And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you never miss an adventure. The boardroom of Sterling Global wasn't just a room. It was a kingdom. Floor-to-ceiling glass walls revealed the city glittering below, a living reminder of the empire Jonas Sterling had built. The polished mahogany table gleamed beneath golden light, lined with men in tailored suits who would not dare speak unless spoken to. And yet, tonight, the kingdom felt like a cage. Jonas Sterling, billionaire, genius, self-made titan of industry, looked nothing like the picture on the glossy magazine covers. His collar was loose, his tie forgotten on the table, and his glass of Macallan trembled in his hand as he poured another measure. His usually sharp blue-gray eyes were bloodshot, haunted. He had been betrayed, and everyone in the room knew it. "You think I don't hear the whispers?" Jonas' voice was sharp, bouncing off the glass walls. He jabbed a finger at the men seated before him. "You think I don't know which of you met with Falcon Tech behind my back?" No one spoke. A nervous cough came from the far end, quickly silenced. Jonas laughed, a dangerous, hollow laugh. "Loyalty is dead. Commitment is dead. Hell, even love is dead." He threw back the whiskey in one swallow and slammed the glass against the table. Crystal shards flew across the surface like tiny diamonds. The board members flinched. Not one of them dared to move. Jonas leaned forward, both palms flat on the wood. His smile stretched too wide, the kind of smile that made grown men uneasy. So why not gamble with what's left? Jonas, Clark, his oldest advisor, spoke softly, his voice carrying the weight of a man who had watched this empire rise brick by brick. "This isn't the way." Jonas didn't hear him. Or maybe he didn't care. His pulse was hammering in his ears, his chest burning with fury, his pride clawing for air. He needed to prove to them, to himself, that he was still in control. "I'll marry," he said suddenly, his voice loud enough to rattle the glass walls, "the next woman who walks through that door." The words hung in the air, heavy and reckless. The boardroom went silent. No one moved, no one breathed. The men exchanged quick, desperate glances. Was it a joke? Was he serious? With Jonas, it was impossible to tell. Clark leaned toward him urgently. "Say it was a joke, Jonas. Say it now." Before, the double doors creaked open. Every head turned. A woman stepped inside. She wasn't dressed for the boardroom. Not in the way Jonas' exes would have been. No silk dress, no diamond dripping from her neck. She wore a red baseball cap pulled back over messy curls, a plain jacket with a name tag pinned half on, half off, and she carried a warm paper bag that gave off the faint smell of garlic and soy. The kind of girl you wouldn't notice in a lobby full of suits. Ordinary, tired, yet her eyes, deep brown, sharp beneath the bill of her cap, flickered across the room with a flash of curiosity before they settled on Jonas. She froze. The room froze with her. She stammered, lifting the bag slightly. "Delivery? Order for Sterling." Her name tag, smudged but visible, read, Lena. Jonas Sterling, the man who had stared down senators and CEOs without blinking, went pale. His lips parted, but nothing came out. For the first time in his career, Jonas Sterling looked undone. Lena shifted her weight, uncomfortable under the scrutiny of a dozen men in suits. She had just come from a 12-hour shift, her sneakers scuffed, her back aching from carrying bags up endless flights of stairs. This wasn't her world. These weren't her people. She tilted her head slightly, her voice cutting through the suffocating silence. "Look, I don't know what's going on here, but somebody ordered takeout, and it's getting cold." Clark's hand shot out, gripping Jonas' arm onto the table. His whisper was urgent, almost a plea. "Jonas, walk it back. Say you were joking. Say it now." But Jonas didn't. He couldn't. Something had shifted in him the moment she walked in. Maybe it was the absurdity of fate, the universe mocking him. Maybe it was her eyes, tired, yes, but unflinching. Maybe it was that she didn't bow or grovel like everyone else in the room. Whatever it was, Jonas Sterling, master of empires, couldn't look away. The boardroom felt smaller, the air tighter. The men exchanged uneasy glances, waiting for Jonas to dismiss his own words, to laugh it off. But Jonas stayed silent, his gaze locked on Lena. The delivery girl shifted again, clearly impatient. So who's signing for this? Jonas finally spoke, his voice lower now, almost hoarse. I did, he said. The words were simple, but the way he said them, steady, deliberate, without breaking eye contact, sent a ripple through the room. Lena blinked, confused. She didn't know yet. She couldn't, but the men in suits understood. Jonas Sterling wasn't walking back his words. And for the first time, they realized the bet wasn't a joke. It was a promise. By morning, the skyscraper was on fire. Not literally, but in the only way a billion-dollar empire could burn, with whispers. Secretaries exchanged wide-eyed glances at the espresso machine. Assistants lingered longer than usual by the elevators, phones buzzing in their pockets. By noon, the rumor had already spread from the top floor down to the mailroom. Jonas Sterling said he'd marry a delivery girl. Nobody knew if it was true, but the story was too wild not to believe. Jonas sat in his corner office. The city stretched beneath him like a glittering chessboard. He hadn't slept. His whiskey glass from last night still sat on his desk. Untouched, the ice melted into pale water. Across from him, Clark paced with the frustration of a man trying to pull a train back onto the tracks. You have to shut this down, Jonas, Clark urged. Call a press release. Laugh it off. Say you were drunk. Say you were joking. Jonas leaned back in his leather chair, steepling his fingers. His face gave nothing away, but his eyes burned with something dangerous. Pride, maybe, or something stranger. I wasn't joking, he said quietly. Clark stopped pacing. Jonas, listen to me. This is madness. You don't even know the girl's last name. She's not part of this world. That's the point. Jonas cut in sharply. He stood and crossed to the window, his reflection cast against the skyline. I've spent my life surrounded by people who only want what I can give them. Deals. Power. Money. She walked in with none of that. She didn't even blink at me. Clark pinched the bridge of his nose. She blinked, Jonas. She blinked. You're rewriting history. Jonas ignored him, his jaw tightening. Find her. What? I said find her. Jonas turned, his voice calm but commanding. Bring her back. Officially. Clark's mouth opened, then closed. He'd seen Jonas in 1,000 battles. Hostile takeovers, courtroom wars, midnight boardroom showdowns. He'd seen the man gamble billions with steady hands. But this wasn't strategy. This was impulse. And impulse was dangerous. Lena Morales balanced 3 takeout bags in her arms as she trudged up the 4th flight of stairs in a walk-up with no working elevator. Sweat clung to her neck, her cap pulled low. The events of last night still played in her head like a bad dream. The boardroom, the stairs, the man at the head of the table, looking at her like she was some revelation. She shook her head, laughing under her breath. Rich people are crazy. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She ignored it. Buzz. Again and again. By the time she reached the 5th floor, her patience snapped. She balanced the bags against her hip and swiped to answer. Hello. Miss Morales? A crisp male voice on the other end. This is Clark Reynolds, special advisor to Mr. Jonas Sterling. Mr. Sterling would like to invite you back to Sterling Global Headquarters this afternoon. Lena stopped in the hallway. Wait, Jonas Sterling? The billionaire guy? Yes, ma'am. She laughed, a little too loud for the narrow hall. Yeah, right. Who is this really? Manny? Did you lose another bet? This is not a prank, Miss Morales, Clark said firmly. Mr. Sterling insists. Insists on what? She demanded. I already delivered his food. Unless he wants me to bring dessert. I don't see. Not for food. For lunch. With him. The words hung in the air. Lena blinked, trying to process. You're telling me Jonas Sterling, the guy whose face is on Forbes, wants me to eat lunch with him? Yes. He'll send a car. The line clicked dead. Lena stood frozen in the hallway, the smell of sesame chicken drifting from the bags in her arms. Her heart thudded in her chest. What in the world had she just walked into? By 2 o'clock, Lena found herself sitting in the back of a sleek black Mercedes, hands folded in her lap like she was on her way to a job interview she hadn't applied for. Her jeans suddenly felt too casual, her sneakers too loud against the leather floor mats. When the car pulled up to Sterling Global, she nearly backed out. The building loomed like a glass palace, its mirrored surface catching the sun. A place for kings, not delivery girls. But the chauffeur held the door open, and suddenly Lena was stepping into marble floors, her reflection stretching across the polished lobby. The receptionist smiled politely, but her eyes lingered, curious. Everyone's did. Lena could feel it. Whispers, stares, silent questions following her every step as Clark escorted her into the private elevator. When the doors opened on the top floor, Jonas Sterling was waiting. He looked different in daylight, composed, powerful, his suit sharp, no trace of last night's unraveling. But his eyes hadn't changed. "Miss Morales," he greeted smoothly. "Thank you for coming." Lena crossed her arms, bracing herself. "Did I have a choice?" A flicker of a smile tugged at his mouth. "Everyone has a choice. Not when billionaires send cars," she shot back. Jonas chuckled, low and genuine, and gestured toward the tables set by the window. 2 plates, silver cutlery, champagne chilling in a bucket of ice. Lena hesitated, then walked forward, her sneakers squeaking softly on the polished floor. Jonas watched her with that same unnerving focus as last night, like she was the only person in the room. And as Lena sat across from him, her eyes narrowing with suspicion, a question hung heavy in the air, one neither of them dared ask out loud. Was this sincerity or just reckless pride? The penthouse lights washed the city skyline in silver, but inside Jonas Whitmore's office, it felt like the air had thickened. Lena sat across the marble desk, her delivery uniform still wrinkled from the day's chaos, and Jonas leaned back in his leather chair, his eyes sharp and unreadable. "You misunderstand," Jonas said finally, his tone as crisp as the cut of his suit. "I'm not asking you for a relationship. This isn't about love." His words hung in the room. Colder than the glass of scotch, he sat down. Lena narrowed her eyes. "Then what exactly are you asking?" Jonas leaned forward, the weight of his authority pressing across the space. "A contract. A marriage. Convenient, temporary, but beneficial. To both of us." Lena blinked, half expecting him to laugh and reveal it as some sick joke. Instead, he slid a folder across the desk. Inside were neatly printed documents with her name already typed in. Her heart skipped. "You want me to marry you? You said it yourself," Jonas replied smoothly. "The media has already branded us. The delivery girl who caught a CEO. Investors are skittish. The board is furious. But if we control the narrative, if we make this scandal look like a story of love, it saves my empire. And you," his lips curved faintly, almost a smirk, "you'll never worry about bills again." The audacity of it made Lena's laugh crack with disbelief. "So, I'm just a pawn? A business prop to polish your image?" "Think of it as a partnership," Jonas countered. "You get financial security. I get stability. It's clean, simple, logical." But nothing about the way his gaze lingered on her felt logical. Beneath the cold calculation, there was tension, raw, unspoken, electric. Lena crossed her arms, her spine stiffening. "If you think I'm going to roll over and be your little PR trophy, you've picked the wrong girl." For the first time, Jonas's polished mask faltered. Her defiance wasn't in his script. "Negotiate, then," he said, voice dropping. "What do you want?" Lena leaned forward, eyes locking onto his with surprising fire. "My freedom. My independence. You want my name in headlines? Fine, but I don't play house. I don't answer to you. And if this blows up, you take the fall, not me." Jonas studied her like a chess master recalculating the board. Then, slowly he nodded. "You have more backbone than I thought. Don't underestimate me again," she said quietly. The next morning, the world woke up to a feeding frenzy. Breaking news: delivery girl engaged to billionaire Jonas Whitmore. Tabloid headline: from pizza boxes to penthouse rings. Morning show chatter: it's a Cinderella story, or is it? Paparazzi camped outside Lena's apartment. Reporters shouted questions as she left for work. By the time she reached the cafe where she sometimes picked up shifts, the owner was waiting at the door. "Lena, you can't be here," he whispered urgently. "The cameras. Customers are scared away. You're too hot right now." She turned, the flashes blinding her, microphones shoved near her face. Lena, are you marrying for money? Did Jonas buy your silence? Are you pregnant?" Each question stabbed deeper, but Lena forced herself to keep walking, chin lifted. She wasn't going to give them tears. Meanwhile, at Whitmore Enterprises, the atmosphere curdled. The board gathered in a tense emergency session, suits huddled like vultures. "Jonas, this is reckless," one director snapped. "A delivery girl? Investors are pulling out by the hour. This is not stability, it's humiliation." Jonas, sitting at the head of the table, didn't flinch. "I told you, I control this. The narrative is ours. What they see is a love story, a redemption. And when Lena walks down that aisle, they'll eat it up." But as he spoke, a flicker of something crossed his face. Doubt? Or the memory of Lena's sharp eyes cutting through his confidence. That evening, the contract signing took place in silence. Jonas's penthouse once again became the stage. The legal team shuffled papers, murmuring about clauses and contingencies. Lena sat with pen in hand, scanning the pages. Each line tethered her future to his empire. She could almost hear the echoes of her mother's voice in her head. "Never sell yourself, Lena. Never let a man own you." But here she was. Jonas extended the pen. Their fingers brushed, sending an unwanted shiver up her arm. "You're making the right decision," he said softly, almost convincing himself. She pressed the tip to the page, her signature looping across the lines that sealed her fate. The room exhaled, lawyers exchanging relieved looks. But then Lena leaned closer, her lips brushing near Jonas's ear. Her whisper was razor sharp. "You think I don't know what this really is?" Jonas froze. For the first time in years, someone had spoken to him without fear, without awe, just unvarnished truth. The pen clicked shut, the papers gathered, the deal complete. But Jonas knew at that moment. He hadn't caged her. He'd unleashed something he might not be able to control. And Lena knew this wasn't just a contract. It was the opening move in a dangerous game neither of them truly understood. The news hit like a bomb. By sunrise, every major network was running with it. Whitmore engaged, delivery girl to billionaire. Clips of Jonas and Lena leaving his penthouse the night before were looped endlessly, set to dramatic music on gossip shows. Twitter and TikTok churned with memes. Jonas's icy face next to Lena's confused expression, captions screaming, "Get you a girl who delivers more than pizza." In a matter of hours, their lives became the world's favorite soap opera. Jonas adjusted his tie in the back of the Blacktown car, his jaw clenched like steel. "Smile. Hold my arm. No sudden moves. We control the story. Do you understand?" Lena, seated beside him in a borrowed designer dress that still smelled faintly of the boutique, turned to him with a smirk. "Relax, Mr. Whitmore. I know how to act." He shot her a look. "This isn't acting. This is survival." The car doors opened to a wall of cameras outside the Whitmore Foundation Gala. Flashes went off like lightning. 1,000 voices screamed her name. But when Lena stepped out, her nervous laugh turned into something else, something magnetic. She took Jonas's arm with natural grace, waving to the crowd like she'd been born into this world. "Hi. Thank you. Thank you," she called, her voice warm, disarming. The crowd ate it up. Inside, the ballroom buzzed. Donors, journalists, and board members circled like sharks. Lena leaned into Jonas, whispering, "If this is what surviving looks like, I'm doing pretty damn well." He hated that she was right. The interviews came next. Cameras rolled as Jonas delivered his usual corporate scripted lines. "Yes, Lena and I are engaged. It was unexpected, but sometimes life surprises you." Then the reporter turned to Lena. "And you? How does it feel to be swept into this fairy tale?" Lena didn't miss a beat. She smiled, genuine and playful. "Fairy tale? More like a storm. One minute I'm delivering coffee. The next I'm in a dress worth more than my apartment." "But, Jonas," she glanced at him with a mischievous glint, He's surprisingly human. Don't let the suit fool you. The room erupted in laughter. The reporter beamed. The clip went viral before dessert was served. By midnight, hashtag Team Lena was trending. Fans called her refreshing, real, the girl next door who made it. For the first time in his career, Jonas wasn't the center of the narrative. Lena was. Behind closed doors, the board fumed. She's a liability, muttered Victor Crane, the silver-haired vice chairman, slamming his fist on the conference table. A delivery girl with no pedigree, no connections. This could sink us. Another member leaned in. Or save us. Look at the numbers. Public interest is surging. The stock price is climbing on the back of her, not Jonas. Victor's lips twisted. Exactly. If the public starts to believe she is the story, not him, Jonas loses control. And when he does, we remove him. Permanently. The boardroom buzzed with nods. The plan had begun. Meanwhile, Jonas paced his penthouse like a caged lion. You're hijacking the narrative, he told Lena bluntly. Lena, barefoot now, kicked off her heels and sprawled on his velvet sofa. I didn't hijack anything. I was myself. Maybe people like that for a change. You don't understand, Jonas snapped. I've built my reputation on control. Precision. One wrong move. And maybe that's your problem, she cut in, eyes flashing. People don't want perfect anymore. They want real. You hide behind numbers and suits, and you wonder why you're losing them. They see me because I let them. His chest tightened at her words. For the first time, Jonas wondered if she wasn't just a prop in his empire, but a threat to it. Just when he thought the night couldn't twist any further, Lena's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, her face draining of color. The name flashing, there wasn't one she expected to see again. Jonas noticed immediately. Who is it? No one, she said too quickly, sliding the phone face down. But he wasn't fooled. You're hiding something. Drop it. Her voice was sharp, final. But Jonas's instinct screamed. He'd spent years dismantling competitors, exposing secrets, manipulating markets. He knew the look of someone with a past that could burn everything down. Later, as Lena lay awake staring at the city lights, her mind spun. She thought she'd buried that chapter of her life. The one person who knew who she really was before she became the delivery girl. And now, just as the world put her on a pedestal, they had resurfaced. Lena whispered to herself, barely audible in the dark. Not now. Please not now. And in the shadows of the city, someone watched, waiting. Because Lena Whitmore, if she was even truly Lena Whitmore, was about to learn that the past doesn't stay buried. Not when billions are at stake. The chandelier above the Whitmore Grand Dining Hall glittered like 1,000 watching eyes. Every crystal shimmered with judgment. Every polished spoon reflected suspicion. Lena adjusted the strap of her borrowed gown, trying to steady her breath as she stood at Jonas Sterling's side. This wasn't just dinner. This was trial by fire. The guest list was stacked with board members, investors, media gatekeepers, people whose approval kept Jonas's empire afloat. They weren't here to eat. They were here to dissect. Jonas leaned toward her, voice low clipped. Remember, smile, small talk, no surprises. Relax, she whispered back, forcing a grin. I've carried trays through rowdy diners at 2 in the morning. This, just fancier plates. But Jonas didn't smile. His eyes flickered with something else, fear, maybe. The first courses flowed, and Lena held her own. She charmed a skeptical investor by joking about nearly tripping in her heels. She laughed off the icy questions about her background. Slowly, she began to feel steady, until the temperature in the room dropped. Claudia, Jonas muttered, his glass pausing midair. Every head turned as Claudia Devereaux swept in like a storm wrapped in silk. Tall, flawless, a dress the color of spilled wine clinging to her. She was everything Lena wasn't. Born into wealth, bred for power, and absolutely venomous. Jonas, Claudia purred, pressing a kiss to his cheek with lips that lingered. Then her gaze slid to Lena, cool and slicing. And this must be the help? A ripple of cruel laughter drifted across the table. Lena felt her face flush, but before she could speak, Jonas's hand closed around hers under the table. Tight, protective. She's my fiancée, Jonas said, his voice hard enough to silence the room. And you'll treat her with respect. Gasps fluttered like wings. Jonas Sterling, known for defending nothing but his bottom line, had just gone to war over a woman. Claudia's smile didn't falter, but her eyes sharpened like blades. Of course, she said sweetly. How touching. The rest of the dinner was a battlefield disguised as small talk. Claudia told story after story of her and Jonas's past. Holidays in Monaco, charity galas in Vienna, the kind of glittering history Lena couldn't compete with. Each anecdote was a dart, aimed to remind Lena she didn't belong. Lena tried to hold her ground, but the weight of the stairs pressed in. She could feel whispers forming around her like smoke. Then came the breaking point. So tell us, Lena, Claudia asked loudly, her smile sharp as glass. How does one go from delivering packages to, well, delivering this? She gestured grandly at Jonas, the table, the empire. Was it luck? Or just good timing? The table chuckled. Cameras from the discreetly invited press leaned closer. Lena's fork froze. She wanted to sink, vanish, but Jonas didn't give her the chance. He set his glass down with a decisive clink. You're out of line, Claudia, he said, voice low but carrying. His gaze swept the table. Lena has more dignity in one breath than most of you in a lifetime. She's not here because of luck. She's here because she belongs with me. The room fell silent. The cameras clicked furiously. Claudia's face cracked for the briefest second before her mask slid back in place. She smiled, cold as marble. Well, she said lightly, isn't that romantic? Later, after the guests had dispersed and the photographers were gone, the penthouse elevator doors shut behind them with a metallic thud. Silence stretched, heavy, until Lena finally turned on him. What was that? She demanded, tossing her clutch onto the couch. Jonas loosened his tie, his expression unreadable. That was me protecting what's mine. Her jaw dropped. Yours? I'm not some asset you will out to impress your investors. You think I enjoyed tonight? His voice sharpened. Every pair of eyes dissecting us, waiting for me to fail? You think I don't know how impossible this is? Then why defend me? She shot back. Why humiliate Claudia? Risk your board. Risk everything for me. He took a step closer. The air between them crackled, charged. Because, he said, his voice rough, for once, someone looked at me tonight and saw me. Not the empire, not the money. Just Jonas. And I'm not about to let them tear you apart for it. Her breath caught. His nearness was overwhelming, the honesty in his words rattling her defenses. She could smell the faint trace of his cologne, feel the heat radiating off him. This isn't about business anymore, is it? She whispered. His eyes darkened, unreadable. You tell me. The silence burned hotter than words. They stood inches apart, pride and attraction warring in the charged space between them. Lena's heart pounded, but she forced her voice steady. Careful, Jonas. You're playing a game you might actually lose. For the first time that night, his lips curved in something like a smile, dangerous, hungry, uncertain. And Lena realized, with a shiver, that the dinner from hell had lit a fuse neither of them knew how to put out. The revelation broke not with a whisper, but with a headline. Whitmore heiress-to-be has ties to rival corporation. By morning, the story was everywhere. Broadcast news, finance blogs, TikTok conspiracy accounts. Photographs of Lena in a modest suit, hair pulled back, badge clipped to her shirt. Working 2 years ago in the research department of Caldwell Dynamics, Jonas Sterling's oldest rival. Jonas stood in front of the massive television in his penthouse, jaw tight, every muscle in his face locked. The image of Lena, younger, unpolished but unmistakably her, stared back at him. Behind him, Lena's voice trembled. Jonas, I can explain. He turned slowly, eyes like glass. Explain? You've been lying to me since the moment you walked through that door. Her heart thudded. I didn't lie. I didn't plan this. That night, the delivery, it wasn't a setup. I didn't even know you lived in that building. I was just trying to pay rent. He laughed, bitter, humorless. And yet you happen to be carrying the face of my enemy into my boardroom? Do you realize what this looks like? What it means? Lena stepped forward, desperate. I left Caldwell before I ever met you. I was a data grunt, Jonas, a nobody. They fired me when I refused to do something illegal. That job nearly broke me. But Jonas's mind was already racing. Through board whispers, investor calls, every headline framing him as a fool who let a rival infiltrate his empire. You could destroy me with what you know, he said, voice low, dangerous. And if I wanted to, don't you think I already would have? She shot back, fire flashing through her. The room fell silent. For the first time, Jonas saw the steel in her. Not the delivery girl, not the pawn, but the woman who had survived boardrooms built to crush her. By afternoon, the board pounced. Jonas, this is untenable, Victor Crane declared at the emergency meeting. Your so-called fiancé has compromised your reputation, the company's integrity, and our stock price. Investors are calling for your resignation. Jonas sat at the head of the table, silent, Lena's revelation still clawing at him. She has leverage over you, another board member sneered. If she leaks what she knows from her time at Caldwell, we're finished. Jonas's hands tightened into fists. She won't. Victor's eyebrow arched. And how exactly can you guarantee that? Jonas had no answer. That night, Lena found him in his study, whiskey glass untouched on the desk. You think I wanted this? She asked softly. He didn't look up. You had every chance to tell me the truth. Instead, I find out on a headline. Her voice hardened. Because I knew you'd do exactly this. Shut me out. Accuse me. Make me the villain. Jonas, I didn't choose your world. It chose me the second I walked into that boardroom with a damn coffee tray. His gaze finally lifted, sharp, accusing. So what now, Lena? You hold me hostage with secrets I can't risk getting out? Is that your leverage? Her breath hitched, but she met his stare without flinching. No, my leverage is knowing you don't trust anyone. And for some insane reason, you trusted me. That's worth more than any secret. The words hit harder than he wanted to admit. But the storm outside was growing. The press painted him as reckless, weak, controlled by a woman with motives. Investors threatened a mass pullout. For the first time in his career, Jonas Sterling wasn't the predator. He was prey. And then came the final blow. Victor appeared on the evening news, his polished voice dripping with false concern. Sterling Enterprises need stability. Unless Mr. Sterling can prove, beyond doubt, that this engagement is not a liability but a strength, the board will move to remove him as CEO. The anchor leaned in. And how can he prove that? Victor's smile was a dagger. Love, if this is real, let Ms. Taylor declare it. Publicly, unequivocally. The world needs to see she is not here for secrets or power, only for him. Jonas slammed the remote down. They're using you, he growled. Lena, standing across the room, folded her arms. They're using both of us. His eyes burned into hers. If you go out there and declare love you don't feel, you save me. You save the empire. If you don't, he let the words hang, heavy, final. Lena's chest tightened. The irony wasn't lost on her. For all his billions, all his power, Jonas Sterling's survival now hinged on a girl who once made $12 an hour delivering packages. But behind his demand, she saw something else, fear. The kind of fear no boardroom could fix. She stepped closer, voice quiet but shaking. And what if I do feel it, Jonas? What if that's the one part of this mess that's real? For the first time since the scandal broke, his facade cracked. Just for a second. And in that second, Lena realized the truth. Jonas wasn't afraid of losing his empire. He was afraid of losing her. The cathedral doors burst open to a blinding wall of flashes. Dozens of photographers jostled for position, shouting Lena's name like she was royalty. The city had been waiting for this moment, some with envy, others with ridicule, and now it was happening under the merciless glare of the cameras. Jonas tightened his jaw as he stepped forward, his tailored suit sharp enough to cut glass. Beside him, Lena floated in white silk, her veil glimmering under the golden chandeliers. She didn't flinch, didn't falter. She held herself with the kind of poise that unnerved him, like she had been preparing for this role her entire life. The air inside the cathedral was thick, a mixture of perfume, sweat, and whispers. Some guests smiled politely. Others leaned into each other's ears, trading gossip like currency. The headlines had already written themselves. The business king marries the mystery girl. Jonas kept his grip on Lena's arm, whispering through clenched teeth. "You're enjoying this too much." Her lips curled into a faint smile beneath the veil. "Maybe I'm better at pretending than you thought." That was the thing about Lena. She had slipped into the spotlight with unsettling ease. She was no longer the delivery girl from a rainy night. She was the woman half the city cheered for and half mocked. And Jonas couldn't tell if her confidence thrilled him or threatened him. The organ roared, filling the cathedral with thunder. They walked down the aisle, every step echoing like a drumbeat of inevitability. Cameras clicked from the balconies, beams of light bouncing across stained glass windows. But then, chaos. A cluster of protesters broke through the security barrier outside, their chants piercing through the heavy cathedral doors. "Fraud! Fraud! Jonas is a fraud." Placards slapped against the glass windows, their bold letters screaming accusations about corruption, greed, and betrayal. Gasps rippled through the pews. A flower girl dropped her basket of petals. Jonas' board members shifted uncomfortably, some exchanging nervous glances. Jonas tried to keep his composure, but his knuckles whitened. "Claudia," he muttered, scanning the crowd. He knew her fingerprints were all over this. And there she was, Claudia, his former ally turned viper, seated in the front pew, her lips painted the color of blood, her smile sharp as a blade. She raised her champagne glass in mock salute, as if to toast his downfall. Lena caught the gesture and, for the briefest second, froze. Her eyes flickered between Jonas and Claudia, between the man she was tethered to and the woman who wanted him ruined. But then Lena did something unexpected. She straightened her shoulders, lifted her chin, and stepped forward with more grace than ever. The priest's voice boomed. "Do you, Jonas Hale? Take this woman." "Yes." Jonas cut in sharply, his tone clipped. He didn't trust anyone anymore, not even time itself. "And do you, Lena?" "I do," she said, calm and clear, not a tremor in her voice. The vows were exchanged. Rings slipped onto fingers that trembled more with consequence than love. The priest declared them husband and wife, but before Jonas could breathe, a roar of laughter burst from the back. A cluster of Claudia's associates whispered loudly, their mocking commentary carried across the room. "A sham wedding," one said. "He's desperate," another sneered. The tension cracked like glass. But Lena was the one who saved it. She turned to Jonas, pulled him close, and kissed him with a fire that no one expected. For a moment, the cathedral erupted, not in mockery, but in awe. Cameras snapped furiously, capturing the kiss that silenced the whispers. Jonas' heart thundered against his ribs. For all her secrets, all her betrayals, Lena had just done something he couldn't. She had taken control of the narrative. Outside, the chants of protesters grew louder, but inside, the applause drowned them out. The guests rose to their feet, swept away by the performance. It was messy, chaotic, dangerous, but in that instant the spectacle had worked. The ceremony ended, and the couple stepped out into the storm of reporters. Confetti rained from the balconies, mixing with camera flashes until the whole world seemed like a blur of glitter and noise. Jonas raised his hand in a show of power, his other hand locked around Lena's. But inside, his chest felt tight, his mind a battlefield of mistrust and desire. Because now it was real. The marriage wasn't just staged, it was legally binding. Signed, sealed, and witnessed by half the city. And the consequences were far bigger than either of them had expected. As they were escorted into the waiting limousine, Lena leaned close, her breath warm against his ear. "You're not the only one who knows how to play this game," she whispered. Jonas turned to her, searching her eyes for a crack, a weakness, anything to cling to. But all he found was a reflection of his own fear, and, perhaps, his own hunger. The city cheered and mocked in equal measure outside. Inside the car, the silence was deafening. The wedding that shouldn't have happened had just changed everything. The morning light cut through the penthouse curtains like a blade, too sharp, too revealing. Jonas stirred first, his hand brushing against the silk sheets before he turned and caught sight of Lena. She was already awake, lying on her side, her eyes tracing the skyline of a city that now buzzed with their names on every tongue. For a moment, it looked almost ordinary, two people sharing a quiet morning after a wedding. But nothing about them was ordinary. They weren't newlyweds. They were players in a high-stakes game that had just gone nuclear. Jonas rubbed his temples, the dull ache of exhaustion and champagne still clinging to him. "Congratulations," he muttered, his voice gravel. "We've managed to make the front page of every paper in the country." Lena's lips curved, not quite a smile. "Isn't that what you wanted? Power loves an audience." He shot her a look, sharp enough to cut, but she held his gaze without flinching. That was Lena, unapologetically steady, even when the ground beneath them shook. By breakfast, the storm had already hit. Calls from investors, frantic and furious, poured in. Screens in the living room flashed with financial networks dissecting the marriage like it was a merger gone wrong. Anchors speculated about Lena's past, her intentions, her suspicious rise from obscurity to the wife of the city's most powerful man. Jonas Hale's empire is in free fall, one commentator barked. This wedding could be the nail in the coffin, or the start of a new dynasty. Jonas muted the television and slammed his phone onto the table. They're circling like vultures. Lena sipped her coffee, unbothered. Let them circle. Vultures get full on scraps. You don't give them scraps, Jonas. You give them a feast they choke on. He stared at her, caught between admiration and distrust. She spoke like someone who had lived in shadows, who understood the rhythm of scandal. But then came the quiet moments, the ones neither of them wanted to admit mattered. A brush of hands as they both reached for the newspaper. The way Jonas caught her watching him when she thought he wasn't looking. The silence between them wasn't cold anymore. It hummed with a tension neither power nor pretense could erase. And it unsettled Jonas more than the headlines. By noon, Claudia's fingerprints were everywhere. Leaked documents about questionable board dealings. Old rumors dressed up as fact. Whisper campaigns so loud they echoed in every corner of the financial district. Jonas' enemies, once scattered, had gathered into a pack, their teeth sharp, their eyes hungry. Jonas paced the penthouse like a caged animal. They'll rip me apart if I don't give them something. Some show of stability, some proof this isn't all a disaster. Lena leaned against the window, arms crossed, her silhouette framed by sunlight. Then stop fighting like a cornered man. Start playing like the king they fear. He stopped pacing. You think marrying you saved me? Her eyes met his, unwavering. No, Jonas. I know it did. The truth settled between them, heavy but undeniable. The marriage, chaotic, scandalous, mocked, had anchored Jonas' crumbling empire. Investors, desperate for stability, had nowhere else to turn. His enemies wanted chaos, but chaos was already here, and somehow Jonas still stood. But the cost was clear too. In binding himself to Lena, he had given her a seat at his table, a share of his empire, a voice that could one day silence his own. She was both salvation and potential ruin. That night, exhaustion pulled at them, but the tension never left. They lay side by side, not quite touching, their breaths overlapping in the dark. Jonas turned toward her, his voice low. If you ever decide to destroy me, you'll be very good at it. Lena's laugh was soft, almost sad. Maybe, but what if I decide not to? He didn't answer. He couldn't. And then, just as silence began to feel safe, the knock came. Soft at first, then deliberate. A shadow under the door. Jonas rose, wary, and opened it to find no one in the hall. Just an envelope, pale against the dark carpet. He picked it up, the weight of it too light to mean anything good. Tearing it open, he froze. Inside were photographs, grainy, invasive, impossible. Jonas and Lena together, long before they had met. Shots of them crossing paths in places they couldn't remember, their faces turned toward each other as if destiny had been scripted. Jonas pulse hammered. He turned the photos toward Lena. She paled, her hand rising to her lips. What is this? Jonas demanded, his voice raw. Lena shook her head, but her eyes betrayed her. She didn't know, or maybe she did, and that was worse. In the silence, the city outside seemed to hold its breath. The wedding had bound them. The scandal had tested them. But now, someone had rewritten their past, and the game they thought they were playing was only beginning.